So this is Sandy Hill Farm. So we are tenant farmers for the National Trust for about 110 acres of pasture, and we mob graze. So you can see that behind the electric fence at the moment. We set them up in fairly small paddocks and move them every day onto fresh grass and rotate around the whole farm using this method. And the reason for that is that if you keep them in a small bunch like this, they are trampling the grass almost as much as they're grazing it.
Basically we're soil farmers really, because we're ensuring that our soils are super healthy with loads of bacteria, fungi, microorganisms, and that in turn means that everything up the food chain is more healthier.
And when we took on the farm, this field was the poorest in terms of biodiversity on the whole farm, and in 3 years, because of our grazing, it's just absolutely exploded. It's just incredible. It makes it all worthwhile. Really. Well, it's my understanding, which is probably pretty loose, is an agreement to import certain agricultural products from Australia into the UK. So we direct sell all our. We're not commodity producers. We direct sell all of our beef directly to the consumer, and people who buy off us they're looking for two things usually. One is the Pasture for Life certification, and the other reason people buy off us is because we're local and they know us. They come to our farm and we show them how we're producing the livestock. And there's a lot of people who are interested in eating less but better meat, which I think the danger with the Australian deal is that it's going to allow beef, other animal products into the country that have much lower welfare standards, but the provenance of the farming behind that story has been completely lost. We sort of operate in a bubble where us and other farmers like us believe that everyone is concerned about where their food comes from, when I think the reality is
The majority.
the majority don't. They're concerned about price, which is fair enough. But if it pushes more people to investigate where their food's coming from, it's potentially got a good outcome for farmers like us, and for helping other farmers realise that the provenance of their food, what they're producing, is important to the consumer. I'd say it can be good for unique farms like ours and other similar Pasture for Life, organic, small producers. Probably not so good for larger producers where the cheaper, that's what it is, cheaper imports could push them to have to cut costs, and probably they would argue that it's unfair that lower welfare standards are acceptable from outside of the UK, and why should they not be able to use growth hormones or more antibiotics in their production?
Basically the beef will be, it's cheaper to produce over in Australia, you think? And so therefore it will drive down the price of food over here.
Yeah, that would be the assumption. Yeah, well I think there's a missed opportunity here, isn't there, to demand that, to have a trade deal with Australia or other countries, but demand that they match our higher welfare and environmental standards. That would be an easy solution, I think. But like I was saying before, I mean, it could have a positive impact in terms of making people really think about where their food's coming from, and making that important to shoppers in the supermarkets, and that would have a knock-on effect. It would encourage supermarkets to take more accountability and more of an interest in provenance.
And transparency.
But I think supermarkets, I mean, they should be responding to consumer demands. So I think it comes back to the consumer. I think all these things come back to the consumer and how interested they are in what's being put in front of them. And they can make the demand to make changes. If they don't buy what's put in front of them on the supermarket shelves, the supermarkets will sit up and listen. I don't know, I think I'm optimistic. I think over the last year there's been a move from the consumer to buy more locally. Well, that's what we've seen anecdotally, isn't it, around us and talking to similar producers. It was quite heartening, wasn't it, last year the amount of support we had locally, but it was totally driven by what was going on externally. COVID. We went from it taking us a bit of effort to sell a finished animal through our beef box scheme direct to selling out, and that carried on through most of last year, but we're definitely seeing that tail off now. So it just shows that long-term trends, I think, would be hard to predict. Hopefully something like this will make people take a lot more attention over what and how what they're eating is being produced. But you do have to see the whole picture of how this is part of a cycle. This isn't abstract. And the insects that are bothering us now are feeding the birds.
And the bats.
And the bats. And, it's all linked. People don't always see the connection between the small things and the big things. From the soil up to the cows, to us, what we're eating, chronic illnesses. Could the increase in something like that be a result of what we're eating? More that's produced intensively? I don't know. You've got to look at the big picture, I think. And animal agriculture is important in the wider environment if it's done properly and managed to the benefit of